gosh, it's just
It must be
lovely.
in
Isn't this
heaven.
the most amazing thing?
Yeah.
I've got a
Aw.
and I tell you what,
That's the best graphic you've ever had.
it is the best graphic ever. You've got that right. I'm gonna have to take a picture of this one and save it forever.
And you're gonna have to pay him too on airtime.
Listen to that sound of a baby falling asleep. Isn't that sweet?
Yes. Oh.
Adorable.
It has been absolutely amazing being here with this little one. But I'll tell you what it has done. It has absolutely reignited in me, like I needed it ignited, but I needed something to be reignited. That my passion, it's gonna make me want to cry. My passion for awakening humanity is stronger than it has ever been before, because if I don't do it for his generation, who the hell am I doing it for? You know, he's going to inherit this world. He's the one who's going to be stuck here living inside of this world that either I can help clean up or I contribute to it, continuing it to get messed up. And it's such a simple choice for me. There's no choice. There's just absolutely no choice. But I have to do it with the way the Course in Miracles invites us to go into awakening, which is to realize that everything is pure consciousness. Everything is God expressing itself in any possible way that it can. Being the light, there is no such thing as darkness. There is only an absence of the light. There is a blocking of the light. Just as the sun is always there, there's no such thing as darkness, nighttime. Nighttime is the experience of the blocking of the light of the sun that is always there. It's just on the other side. We can't see it. It's as if we've turned our back on the light. And that's what humanity has done. For thousands upon thousands of years, we have turned our back on the light, on the truth of who we are. And it's time for us to help each other remember that truth, to help each other wake up to that truth. And that is what, to me, the Course in Miracles has done for me, is it has helped me remember that we are all the light. And any brother or sister that is operating in darkness, like Jesus said, who are we to point at the speck in another person's eye when we have a log in ours? Or who are we to cast the first stone when we ourselves have been sinners? We have missed the mark. We have not been the embodiment of the light. So this little one is born pure light. What happens to him between now and his adult years is what happens to everybody. We fall into darkness. Hello, sweetie. I'm teaching class with him in my office.
Oh, nice. Cool. You want me to take it?
There's Papa.
Hi, guys.
Whenever he's fine right here.
Okay.
And it is a matter of reminding him of this light that he is, reminding him of the truth of his essence. And when we are reminded of the goodness inside of us, then we are willing to be able to do what's right. But we can't do what's right when our heart has been hardened, when through human experiences, our truth gets blocked, our light gets blocked. And the Course is really clear. We cannot save our brothers and sisters if we condemn them, which is what we studied last week. If we judge them, we save them by seeing their innocence and reminding them to reconnect with that. Let them know what you're doing is not loving, what you're doing is not okay. And that will be done in any level of consciousness that we're at, from a level that is absolutely in terror and will lash out, to a level that is taking revenge, to a level that is going to sue them, to a level that is going to pardon them, to a level that is going to, whatever it is, it really does not matter. Every single one of us is going to be guided, whether we realize it or not, is going to be guided into doing exactly what needs to be done, believe it or not, for the greater good of all, even if we're not aware that that's what's happening, because we cannot create darkness. We can only block the light that is there. And the light that is there will always be there. It cannot possibly go away. It's there, it's permanent, it's eternal. It's what God is, what source is, what light is, what love is. It is there always and forever. You gonna take your little baby?
Yeah.
All right, for those of you, let's see. Let me give them one last look.
Oh, yeah.
You want to take his binky there
Yeah.
before drop? So for those of you who just joined us, this is my sweet little grandson who was
Buddy.
being held. He had this much of the formula.
Oh, nice.
The rest is all yours. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, so sweet. Papa came to relieve me. And now the only thing I need to figure out is how to plug my computer because I'm about 74% juice and we'll see. We'll go for as long as we can. Anyways, that has just absolutely touched my heart to be a grandmother to this little one and inspired by the teachings of Peace Pilgrim, which was to walk upon this planet, not being afraid of anything, because what is there to fear? We're all brothers and sisters in various levels of forgetting truth or not. Our work is to, with our heart, with love, with compassion and kindness, say no to what is not okay. Say no to what is hurting humanity. Say no to what is causing so much suffering, because it is not natural. It is something that has been learned, and it is time for us to unlearn that. And those who are not ready to unlearn it are going to face the ramifications of operating in that incredible level of ignorance. Ignorance that being good and being loving and being kind is natural, but that gets trained out of us when we're so little. So my son-in-law's son-in-law is what I call him, is going to get a lesson here. He's never been to one of my classes. Now he is. He's got a captive audience. But let me share again, because I'll probably figure out a way to plug this thing in so that my battery can keep recording. But last week we read out of chapter 31 in the final lesson. We were on page 646. We read paragraphs 7 through, my notes are through 12. I wanted to read a little bit about that and then take us to a lesson 25, which most people don't understand the meaning of lesson 25, and without fully understanding it, and right now is the perfect time to understand it. Lesson 25 is, I do not know what anything is for. It's a absolutely transformational lesson. And we're going to delve into that as however much we can today. But let me complete that paragraph or that section in chapter 31. This was it. It was in the first section of chapter 31. And we read in paragraph number 7, there are only 2 lessons that we need to learn. One is that we are going to be judged. We're wrong. We have sinned. We have made mistakes. The other one is that we are innocent. We are pure light, having an experience where we come into this planet and pretend that we are what we're not. So we get to pick which of those 2 directions we go. And this reminds me of the story. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the story of the Cherokee Indian. Let me read this story to you because it is absolutely, it's just profound. I had it over here. Let me pull it up because it won't be hard for me to find. It is so perfect for the times that we live in. And I am sure when I read this, most of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But the story is basically a little Cherokee Indian boy is talking to his grandfather and sharing with his grandfather some of the things that are happening inside of him. And it's a profound story because it relates to every single one of us. And I know it is not too far away. Here we go. It's called The Story of the Two Wolves. So one evening, an old Cherokee told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, "My son, the battle is between 2 wolves inside each and every one of us. One is evil. It is anger. It is envy. It is jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, being superior. It's the ego. The other is good. It is joy. It is peace. It is love. It is hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. It is our soul. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, well, grandfather, which of these two wolves is going to win this battle? And the old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. And as is with everything that the Course in Miracles has taught me, inside of us is two voices. There is the voice of the ego, there is the voice of our soul, our spirit, whatever you want to call it. There is the voice for love and the voice for fear. The voice for fear blocks the voice for love. The voice for love never goes away. It expresses itself when we don't block it with fear, or it is suppressed when we use fear to block it. But fear in and of itself, this angry, mean wolf, would never exist in any one of us, because in our natural state, it is not a part of who we are. As children, we like to work things out until we get to that age that enough adults around us have modeled for us selfishness. Then they go into that place of it's all about me. But until such time that our minds have been introduced to the concept of evil, of darkness, of being mean, that is not a natural part of who we are. And as I've been watching this little baby, I don't see an ounce of anything except pure perfection in him. So as we look at the Course in Miracles and we keep the story of the two wolves, if you want to go an indigenous route, if you want to use what the Course is saying, that there's two lessons to learn. One is, are you going to listen to the voice for innocence or the voice for guilt? Again, same thing. The voice for guilt comes from us having done things that are not natural. We've been taught those things. But when you listen to the voice for innocence, if a child is allowed to grow completely surrounded by conscious parents who encourage their joy, their play, not that there are not lessons to learn, but they can be taught in a beautiful, loving way. It is not natural to be disconnected from our joy. It is not natural to be disconnected from our creativity, from our desire to do what makes us happy. That is not natural. That is learned, which is why we get conditioned in 12 plus years of basically going to school is like going to a prison. You get sent to your room. If you misbehave, you get put in timeout. You get put in solitary confinement. Somebody might even punish you. The principal might swat you on the butt, like that happened to me when I was little. And so in school, we are conditioned out of what is natural as we learn what is unnatural. The ways of competition, of greed, of, the one has to win, everybody else has to lose. One person, one team gets to win the championship, the rest have to lose. That mentality perpetuates the division that blocks us from the awareness of the truth that is inside of us. When we can keep it that simple, then the work is really truly about removing the obstacles that block the presence of the goodness, the love, the essence that we really are. I mean, it doesn't get any more complicated than that unless a mind wants to complicate it. So let me read from this paragraph number 12. So let us be still an instant and forget all things that we ever learned, all thoughts that we had, and every preconception that we hold of what things mean and what their purpose is. Because the mind gets conditioned to believe that guilt is okay, that we should feel guilty for having asked for more goodness than we deserve, that we should feel guilty for wanting to be more abundant, that we should feel guilty when so many are suffering, that we should feel guilty because we didn't study hard enough, or we abused our parents' finances, or we took advantage of our girlfriend or boyfriend. We are trained into feeling guilty. And the only reason we feel guilty is because we're doing things that are not natural to our soul. If we operated in our innocence, in our joy, and everybody understood that we're going to make mistakes from our innocence, we would be corrected by loving people. We would not be shamed and guilted by those adults who are out of alignment with the truth of who they are. So Jesus is asking us to let go of all of those things that we have in our mind. And here we go, paragraph 13. Be innocent of judgment, unaware of any thoughts of evil or of good that ever crossed the mind of anyone. Let go of the duality, let go of good and bad, positive, negative, let go of that. We're going to come down to the middle. As Vern has told us, the third way, the middle way, whatever you want to call it, the space where you're no longer judging and you can sit in receptivity of guidance that can come in to each and every one of us, not because it just wants to come in for the heck of it. It wants to come in because it is here in service to the greater good of all of us. Our job is to hear it because it is always very clear, very directive, and very loving, even if it's stern. Sometimes love is very, very stern when it comes in completely unjudged. But that ability to hear that the voice of source is so crucial. We've got to train ourselves into doing that. So be innocent of judgment, unaware of any thoughts, let them go, of evil or of good, whatever crosses your mind, positive or negative, let it go. Now, do you know him not? When we are operating with judgment, we don't know people. We know what we think about them. And guess what? Whatever we think about anybody is never about them. It's about us because it's a projection of who we are. We can't possibly know anybody because we've never walked in their shoes. We can make assumptions about them. And you know what happens when we make assumptions. But you are free to learn of him and learn of him anew. Now is he born again to you? Oh my goodness. That touches me. That's how I feel with my little grandson. It's like humanity has been born again new to me. I get to meet everybody. My work is to see them with the innocence in which I see this precious little child. Because we're all that holy son and daughter of the Creator. Let me read that again. Sentence number 4, paragraph 13. Now is he born again to you, and you are born again to him. Without the past that sentenced him to die, and you with him. Now is he free to live as you are free, because an ancient learning passed away. The egoic thoughts, the ego is always about the past. Everything that we think about that causes suffering, we learned it in the past. No suffering shows up in the moment. Suffering is always interpretation about what's happening now, and it is always learned in the past. So now are we free to live as we were created free, because an ancient learning has passed away and left a place for truth to be reborn. And of course, this is the chapter 31, the 31st chapter in the Course in Miracles in the text. So it is letting us know that for something new to be born, you could call it the resurrection, we've got to let go of the old that is not supporting us, the old that is condemning us into a life of fear, of doubt, of guilt, of shame, because we cannot be present who wants to arise while our mind is focused on the guilt of the past. We've got to let go of that guilt. Now, there's a lot of levels to this guilt. It's not a one-size-fits-all guilt. There are lots of levels, and depending on where we are in our journey, we can see that. But the most important thing that the Course wants us to understand is that the way the Creator sees all of us, no matter what you call the Creator, it sees us as innocent. It sees us as children. That's why we have to become like little children to inherit the kingdom of heaven. It sees us as little children playing in the yard. Some are playing with guns, some are playing with Barbie dolls, some are playing hide and seek, some are playing, make-believe mud cakes. Every one of us is like a little child playing a game that we have created into physical manifestation from a non-physical consciousness. We used our imagination like we do in dreaming. We dream up things, and then because of the power of our mind, the creative source created us in its image to create. We have projected a world that is not kind to everybody because we have learned to be unkind to ourselves and others. When all of these things come together and we see how simple awakening is, it is simply the removing of what blocks the truth of the love that we are. It is not easy, but it is simple. The Course needs us to keep it simple. So let me stay quiet here for a second. I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on that? I know I shared a lot. And while you talk, as I'll be listening to you, I'm going to go find a plug and plug my cord. So what are your thoughts? I want to hear from you. Go ahead and unplug yourself or unmute yourself, please. Hey, Laina.
I don't have a question. I had somebody sidetrack me and I missed what you just said. It's all so wonderful though until somebody knocked on the door. So I don't have a question.
No worries, no worries. I was just saying that this is really simple. The goodness and the truth is inside of us, but what's not easy is peeling away all the ways that we have blocked it. But we're all born, like my little grandson, innocent. And so we have to cultivate a level of compassion towards ourselves and then bring that compassion with a very stern certainty, as Jesus did when he walked on this planet, where he wasn't taking nonsense from other people, but at the same time, he wasn't attempting to belittle them because he knew that he was in the presence of himself, because we're all projections for one another, but we have to take a stand. We have to take a stand when we're called, and we have to learn how to listen to that call inside of us that has us take a stand.
Why is that so difficult? That is such a difficult, it's just hard to forgive ourselves.
It's only hard to forgive ourselves because we haven't been trained properly.
Mm-hmm.
We have been trained to forgive and forget, but we're not supposed to forgive and forget. We're supposed to forgive and let go completely, create space. And for us, forget has a lot to do with holding resentments towards others. It's your fault that I'm this miserable, mom, dad, priest, boss, teacher. I'm miserable because of what you did to me. And the Course tells us that's to hold on to a past experience as if that experience had the power to totally and completely ruin our lives. And it didn't. It created a circumstance at a time in our lives that might have been uncomfortable, but it doesn't have the power to extinguish the creativity, the power that we have within inside each and every one of us. So the work of awakening, the dark night of the soul, is to move through all of these stories of limitation until we come to the place that we find our unlimited self. Simple, but not easy.
True.
True. So glad that you're here. But we're recording so you can go back, catch that last couple of minutes.
Okay.
Who else? Who else would like to share? What are your thoughts from what we just talked about? Unmute yourself while I go plug.
This is Vern.
Thank you, Vern.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the what you said so far. The story of the two wolves has been part of my work for at least 25 years. I did a retreat with about 50 men around that story about the two wolves.
Oh, wow.
I've got a gigantic portrait of the two wolves over my fireplace with the story. And there's another piece of that most people don't know about. And I've always liked those type of stories anyway. I use a lot of indigenous work in the works I did, especially when I had Man Talk, when I worked with all the men. But one of the things that came out of that was, they say whatever when you feed. That's the normal understanding. And then the story kind of ends. You see it on different things, but there's a deeper part that goes a little bit further than that. And it says not only the one that you feed, but you must feed both of them. You must pay attention to both of them, because if you don't pay attention to both of them and just push one aside and only focus on the other, if you never address the issues and challenges that are there, they'll still be there. So it's almost like you have to stop for a second, and let's use the ego as the example. The ego is a very poor master. It can be a very powerful servant if you know how to work with it. And that's part of that understanding. In most indigenous populations, there's not an either or. There's always both and. You just have to go deep enough into the stories. Eventually, you'll find where both things are being addressed. Both things are looked at. Both things are recognizing as gifts, way of learning and understanding. So when you said, I knew the minute you said, I want to tell this story about a grandfather, I know exactly where she's going to go. But it's a great metaphor for what you're talking about right now. But that one piece that it's not either or, it's both and if you learn how, it's like you're saying right now, what's going on in our world, we can be for a lot of stuff, but if you're against something, you got to find out why you're against it, and then get clean and clear about that, so that you can allow other people to have their thoughts and their ideas and their beliefs and still maintain your own. But if you don't pay any attention to it, you just push it aside. That's what's happening, I think, from a polarized view from the other side, is they don't want to talk about our feelings and what's going on and the teachings that we're looking at and we're addressing. So I just wanted to share that. I don't know, adds a little bit of value. I tried.
Absolutely, it adds a lot of value, because the Course in Miracles has made it super clear. There is only love, but when we don't know how to just be loving, we create the egoic aspect, which is the fear-based aspect. So until we have created the shift only to love, we have to address that which is unloving, because until we recognize that we created it, we participated in it. And this is, and I know you will agree, you will see it the same way, the hardest part of this journey for most people who are not, I'm going to say, pretty deep into their journey, is facing the things that they have contributed to, albeit ignorantly, albeit without awareness that they did it. And that is the only way that humanity is going to wake up, because we are the ones who have been supporting systems that are absolutely, completely not loving. We have contributed, albeit with our ignorance, to things that have hurt the world. So when we say, oh, I am not for war, but we contribute financially to a government that does purchase ammunitions and purchase, bombs, and does things and trains the military, that creates a lot of suffering in the world, it's really easy for us to say, well, I'm not for the war, so I just don't pay attention to that. Not paying attention to that is feeding that. We are feeding something that is happening inside of our world that is not loving towards a huge majority of the people. And when we don't understand that our minds get conditioned, be it through mother, father, teacher, preacher, the media, the government, until we are willing to question, why are things that I don't like happening? As you said, absolutely. If we don't question why we don't like what somebody else says, all we want to do is shut them down. It is because we have been trained, again, into not questioning, as if questioning is somehow going to be a bad thing. Well, what happens when you get curious and you question things, you actually expand your awareness. When you begin to expand your awareness and you're willing to see the ramifications of all of these things upon the planet, upon your children and grandchildren, this is why becoming a parent changes you, because now all of a sudden you're not just thinking about yourself. I know I was very, very selfish until I started having children. Not like the selfishness stopped then, but it began to become, I began to care more about other people, especially my children. And of course, from that, the extension then into their partners and now their children. We have to question everything, because yes, we are literally feeding two things, but we don't know that we're feeding that second one until we begin to get aware of what we're doing. And only in a loving way should we ever stop feeding the fears, because that means we have come into ourselves deep enough to be compassionate, to realize that everybody that's operating from fear is scared. That's what fear is. They're scared. And here's the crazy thing. They've been scared into not owning their power, because like we've all read this a million times, Marianne Williamson wrote this, comes right out of the Course in Miracles. That's why she wrote The Return to Love about the Course in Miracles, that our greatest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. If we would sit with our fears, we would discover that they lead us to our source of power. Fear is a block to the awareness of that power. But our mind is so conditioned by so many institutions, establishments, movements, into basically being complacent, that it's very uncomfortable to question your fears, because you have to feel all of the joy basically that fears have blocked you from experiencing. We never feel our pain. We feel the pain of all the lost love, the lost joy, the lost creativity. That's what hurts when we enter into our pain. Everything that is lost according to what God created us to experience. So to enter into the pain is to see that the mind got trained into blocking the love, the joy that is ours. So that's why this lesson, I don't know what anything is for, is so appropriate right now. Because if you understand that everything is conspiring for love, conspiring for life, for creativity, for expansion, this lesson is going to totally completely make sense to you. If you don't understand that everything is here to serve the greater good, this lesson, you're going to go, what the hell is she talking about? So we're going to break it down as best as we can today. Does anybody have any comments or questions before we keep going there? Thank you, Vern, for that expansion on the Cherokee story. I actually wasn't aware of that little piece, but it makes perfect sense. No, we'll keep going. All right, so let's go to lesson 25. In the Course in Miracles, this is in the second book, which is the workbook for students. So lesson 25, notice it's 25 out of 365. That means you got to use logic. It's early on in the book. It's still establishing a foundation. We don't know everything that the Course is going to lead us to. We're still establishing a foundation, and these beginning lessons are foundational because they create the pillars that are going to hold the foundation that we're going to be building an entire relationship with truth on. So it's really key that we understand each and every one of these foundational statements. So I do not know what anything is for. Purpose is meaning. You give something a purpose, it has a meaning automatically. Today's idea explains why nothing you see means anything. Now, it means anything to the eye that is looking at it. So just keep that in mind. 24 lessons before this one, we were being prepared to understand that we look at things and see something superficial, but we don't really understand the meaning behind it, which is why people will look at a bum on the street and judge them, not ever looking at the essence of that person inside of them. So today's idea explains why nothing you see means anything. You do not know what it is for. Therefore, it is meaningless to you. Everything is for your own best interest. That is what it is for. That is its purpose. That is what it means. It is in recognizing this that your goals become unified. It is in recognizing this that what you see is given meaning. We've got to start with, I don't know the meaning of that homeless person. I don't know the meaning of that march. I don't know the meaning of that riot. I don't know the meaning of this sweet little baby born into my family. I don't know the meaning of the cat that sneezes here in the house. I don't know the meaning of the avalanche that happened in the mountain right behind us. I don't know the meaning of the rising waters. I don't know the meaning of extraterrestrials. I don't know the meaning of anything. When I can tell my mind, this is the ego mind, that I don't know the meaning of anything, now I can go, if my mind is emptied out of trying to figure it out, I can go into the stillness, into the quiet within and ask, well, what is the true meaning of that? And it's never going to come with a judgment. It's never going to have a good or bad. It's going to come with a very neutral definition. Let me go on to read paragraph 2. Remember that this is a lesson and it's going to take us through some exercises. So paragraph 2, so you perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of your ego goals. So let's understand that our ego has goals. How much money I'm going to make, what my status is going to be. Is it going to keep me safe? Is it going to hurt me? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this helpful? Is this detrimental? Ego looks at everything one of two sides. Every time we categorize something in one of two sides, our ego is going to get activated and it's going to go into selfish self-protection. If I think is bad for me, I'm going to do everything that I can to avoid it. Well, what if that thing that we think is bad for us is actually an invitation for us to open ourselves up into something more wonderful than we ever could have known? This is why we've got to get willing to find out, well, what else could come from this? So we've all heard stories. All of us have been exposed to a story or two of a family whose house gets completely wiped down with a tornado. And you see them months later and they sit down and talk about it and they say, you know what, it was the best experience of our lives because it got rid of all of these things that were material and it gave us the ability to really zero in on what matters. My wife, my children, my dog, everybody was okay. So we hear on a regular basis somebody saying, you know, the marriage ended, but it was the best possible thing that happened to those two people. They divorced and went on to have, you know, better, more meaningful relationships. So we could look at the tornado, we could look at the divorce as something horrible, or somebody who gets fired. Horrible, we could say, what a horrible thing. And then go connect with them a couple of months later or a year later. It's the best thing that ever happened to them. So how can the worst thing be the best thing? If we cannot hold both of those potentials in our mind as equally possible, we will tend to go one way or the other if the ego is the one running the show. If our soul is running the show, if we're connected to higher purpose, in the middle of the disaster, we go into the place of, I don't know what anything is for, but I am trusting. As the Course teaches us in another lesson, lesson 77, we're entitled to miracles. I expect something good to happen to me. You see, the world that is created today is in so much chaos because we don't expect the best to happen to us consistently. We settle for it happening sometimes, but not other times. When we get the job, yes, but not when we get fired. When we find another partner, but not when we get divorced. So we are used to having it to be either or. Course in Miracles says, hold it all together as a potential. Everything is a potential. Everything is unmanifest potential because we are powerful creators made in the image of a creator that creates infinitely. When you understand that this creative source is infinite, we got to stop putting boxes around it. We got to stop saying that the word of God is only in one book, whether it be the Course in Miracles or the Bible. We've got to stop saying that God only wants it this way, the way of this religion or that religion. We've got to expand our mind to understand that we don't understand infinity. We cannot possibly understand what infinite is, which means we should never settle for saying everything is contained in one thing. And that is one of the most important lessons that I ever learned, was to know that my one thought cannot possibly contain the truth. It's just not possible unless I am aligned with the Creator, and the Creator never tells me good, bad. It just allows me to have a knowingness that gives me a confidence and a certainty, but it doesn't judge things good or bad. And that is part of what the Course wants us to get to, is to that quiet mind, so that you feed that white wolf, you feed the voice for love, you feed, strengthen. It's like exercising that muscle. You strengthen your ability to choose only love. You strengthen your ability to see what is always for the greater good of all, even in the midst of what is not so great. Right now, we're in the midst of things that are not so great. Humanity can go that way or this way. We could go negative, we could go positive, but we could also go another way. We could go a way of neutrality that allows for every single being on this planet to live their lives in total and complete alignment with their inner guided source. That is ultimately where we want to go. But if humanity keeps chasing only the good and avoiding the bad, right back to what Vern said, we are not going to be looking at the thing that creates what we don't like, and we are bound to repeat the same thing until humanity has chosen only love and eradicate that which is unloving by looking at it and saying, we don't want any more of you around here. We are not going to be able to shift the trajectory of this planet, because if you go to one side, the pendulum is going to swing to the other side. We could go negative and it's going to get really bad, and then we can have a reprieve for maybe a couple hundred years and things are really good. But inevitably, That seed of egoic fear, that seed of egoic greed stays there, and it will grow, it will expand itself. And then what will happen? The pendulum will swing back again, and we'll be right where humanity is again. And we have been here many, many times. This is not our first rodeo as a humanity. And we've got to get really clear that the reason we're getting so many messages and the reason so many people are excavating so much information is because the time is now for us to take a stand for what it is that we truly believe. And the Course wants us to see that we perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of our ego goals. We've all been trained to chase money, to chase status, to chase safety, to chase health, wealth outside of us. It is time that we understand our soul goals. And it is about what do we have to extend? What do I have to give? No more about what can I get? It is about what can I give? Because in the giving, there is a receiving, there's a beautiful process that happens, but not until the mind is conditioned into knowing its worth and its wholeness so that it can joyfully give from that place. So sentence number 2 says, these goals, ego goals, have nothing to do with your own best interest because the ego is not you. This false identification makes you incapable of understanding what anything is for. As a result, you are bound to misuse it. When you believe this, you will try to withdraw the goals you have assigned to the world instead of attempting to reinforce them. So, what is the ego? The Course tells us over and over and over again. It is nothing but thoughts, beliefs, and ideas about who we think we are, who we think the world is, who we think God is, who we think the government is. Thoughts and ideas about what we think anything is. Thoughts and ideas about what the government is based on what the government tells us about the government is not the same thing as what God knows is true about government. And what God knows is true about government, we got to get down to basics. If we are all created equal, then government is nothing more than our equal brothers and sisters who are choosing to serve in that area, no different than the baker chooses to bake the bread, or the dairy farmer chooses to milk the cows and offer the milk to the community. When we understand that God created all of us equal, government, medicine, lawyering, teaching, parenting, none of those are more important than the other. None are worthy of being the ones who control another. Not at all. So where did we learn that government is of a few to control the many? It's all been made up. It has all been made up. Even in our Constitution, it says that the government is of the many. We, the people, if we don't like what they're doing, we can abolish that because we understand that the many have a voice that needs to be heard. And it needs to be, if you want to call government anything, it should be management. It should be the management, the implementation of that which is safe and good and comfortable for everybody. Actually, our documents are very clear. You know what the government's job is? To make sure that they enforce the inalienable rights that God granted to each and every one of us as our birthright, which are the ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. If you're not totally, completely honoring human life, we have a problem. And that government could be abolished if we're not honoring human life. You know what wars are? Not honoring human life. All right, so we look at liberty. We are free to express ourselves. We do not have the liberty to impose our own freedom upon somebody else, but we have the liberty that if we're not affecting somebody else, to be given the space to do what it is that we are feeling inspired to create. Happiness. How many unhappy people do we have in this world because of government schools, because of institutionalized systems, because of medicine that doesn't work? How many unhappy people are on this planet because of the horrendous things that religion has gotten away with, that I'm going to call them not good people, obviously all pure egoic statements. People who have abused others. How come some of those people get away and never have to account for what they've done to take the liberty, the happiness, the life, or the freedoms of another? So we've got to really get to the place that we begin to question, what is it that we give power to that is not what God said should have power? What does God say says should have power? You and I to extend love. Period. No exceptions to that. So when we understand that we're not being loving, Houston, we have a problem. What's the problem? Egoic goals. Somebody has a goal that has to do with self-gratification. And our corporations, not all, many, our government, not all, many of them, our judicial system, not all, many of them, our education system, not all, many of them, our medical system, not all, many of them, our parental systems, not all, but many of them are in service to the ego alone. That's it. So there is an identity that has been created that is not our God-given identity, that is running the world. And as long as we're kept ignorant that there is a power that is attempting to run the world and to disempower us, we are willingly marching right up to the edge of the cliff. And when we get there, we're going to go, wait a second, you brought us to the cliff. Well, every single day that we give up our power, we're marching towards the cliff. Now, here's the crazy thing, beautiful, amazing thing. When we have the experience of death and we leave this world, it's not like we die. We don't die. We're eternal. Course in Miracles wants us to know that. We are eternal. But why wait until the next reincarnation, come back as a little bitty baby like this one, wait 18, 25 years to do something when you could do something now? That is part of what is awakening in humanity, is a knowingness that we don't have to wait for incarnation to awaken and bring about the glory of the creative source that of all that is right here, right now. So we can resurrect ourselves out of this insanity that the ego has created. But to resurrect ourselves, we have to be willing to crucify everything that is not of God, everything that is not of love, everything that is not of equality, which means we cannot go around tolerating anybody telling us that they have more power over us than God has within us. That is just simply not acceptable to one who is awakening. So what are the ego goals? Everything that is a block to God because it is selfishly motivated. What are God's goals? Everything that is in service to humanity because it is for the greater good of all. How many people are served when we are kind and loving and generous and we sit down and take the time to listen? Everybody. How many are served when we're secretive and blocking and using the systems to make it difficult for anybody to see whatever is going on because there's a service to self alone? The few, the very few. Now we can see those systems. We can see that neither of the systems that the ego has created of making itself a bully or having victims is going to work. Only the system for God. And I don't want to call it a system. It just is what is, that we need to wake up and accept that we have at our disposal. So let me stop there before we go to paragraph 3, in case anybody has any thoughts or comments or questions. I love this conversation. I mean, my God, we don't know what anything is for. When the mind is trained into realizing we don't really know everything, amazing things happen once you move past your fear of oh my God, how do I not know this? I'm ignorant, I'm stupid. No, you're not. You're not none of those things. You just haven't had access to it because the plan was designed to block you from it. But the plan is designed equally for you to wake up and unblock yourself from it, but nobody can do it for you. Who else? No? Well, we'll keep going then. So much to share. Paragraph number 3. So another way of describing the goals that you now perceive, the ego goals that you now perceive, is to say that they are all concerned with personal interests. Again, the ego is always for the self alone. Since you have no personal interests, because as a soul, you're not a person, you are part of everything. Your goals are really concerned with nothing, which is what's so amazing. Let me read this again and then we'll break it down again. All right. Since you have no personal interests, your goals are really concerned with nothing. The ego is not a separate person. The ego is an idea of a separate me. Who we really are one in, oops, my book's sliding, are one in connected consciousness. What we really are is one expression of, or one creative source expressing itself in infinite ways. What we are is brothers and sisters, all part of the same one family. The one human family, the one divine family, doesn't matter what you call it, we're all one. In that oneness, when we connect with that, when we activate the truth of who we are, we cannot help but being kind to one another. In our sense of separation, of this person is different from that person, this person is this color, that person is that color, which is why we're always being divided. If it's not because of the color or the gender or the sexuality, now it's because of the mask, the face covering, or whatever poison they're wanting to put in our veins. If we take it or don't take it, we're good or we're bad. Pure insanity when all of the evidence points to that this stuff is a trial. It's not even anything that has proof that it works. It's a trial that is being placed on all of humanity that is willing to participate in that. So now we're being divided by crazy things that now are absolutely nonsensical and make no sense. But when the mind is not aware of what's happening, in its self-interest, it wants to protect me. I don't care what happens to you. Give me the shot. It will help me. Oh, I got the shot, but it doesn't necessarily work that well, so you got to stay away from me. I mean, crazy stuff that we're willing to participate in because the ego is insane. The Course in Miracles is really clear. The ego is it's a tiny mad idea. Tiny because it wants us to know that it's that little that if you flicked it, if you decided I'm not going to believe this nonsense anymore, it would be gone. Because it's not solid, it's not real. Here comes my beautiful daughter. We'll probably shortly. Here's my girl. You can say hello to the new mama here.
Oh, hi there. I know but a few of you guys.
Yes, you do. You sure do know several of those.
Hello.
There's Lorelei, there's Dondra, you know her, Natalia, and
Nice.
a few more. All right, so let me read the rest of this. Since you have no personal interest, your goals are really concerned with nothing. In cherishing them, therefore, you have no goals at all, and thus you do not know what anything is for. And actually, there's just a few more little things. Let me read just the highlights, not necessarily. My little kitty's hungry. Totally selfish. He just wants food for him all the time. That's all he wants. Feed me, feed me, feed me. So let me read this next couple of lines that are in paragraphs 4 and 5. At the most superficial levels, you do recognize purpose. Innately, we do know that there are some things that are important. Yet purpose cannot be understood at these levels. Superficially, we cannot possibly understand the purpose of what's happening here. It is crucial in paragraph 5, it is crucial to your learning to be willing to give up the goals that you have established for everything. Say, God, I don't know what any of this is for. The recognition that they are meaningless rather than good or bad is the only way to accomplish this. So right now, in the midst of the world, there are some things happening that if we sit around and say they're good or bad, we're going to miss the point. We've got to go inside and feel. Does this make sense or not? If we can go inside and feel, do things make sense to us or not? And have a connection to the creative source that can give us some guidance in different ways, then we would be able to be better clear about what it is that is possible for us here. If we don't connect with that source that is inside of us, we're going to be attempting to control all of the things that are outside. And if we're focused on controlling what is outside of us, we're going to extend a whole lot of energy. We're not going to band together. We're not going to be able to do something that is going to be inherently permanent. This is why the Course in Miracles wants us to realize all of our minds are united. When we begin to think in terms of honoring one another, of loving one another, of valuing one another, of the life, the liberty, and the happiness all of us deserve to have because it's our birthright. When we do that, we will understand the real meaning that the Course in Miracles wants us to understand. While we're selfishly motivated and it's all about me, we are working against one another, because each one of us has its own ideas of what is important for us, has its own ideas of what we should be claiming for ourselves. But today, when we come together in groups like this, if we decide to connect with that source inside of us and find out what's the real meaning here, we would all in stillness find that it's the same thing. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's all the same thing. God tells us in the Course in Miracles our purpose is to be happy. God tells us that we have eternal life. God tells us that we're free. Life, liberty, happiness. I don't know how many other ways I can slice and dice this to show you that what our Constitution states for us, channeled by those incredible men who couldn't live up to that fully. They couldn't. Just as we may not necessarily be able to live up to fully what the Course is teaching us, but if we attempt to hold that as the ultimate, we can come together and do something pretty amazing. And to me, my little grandson has sparked inside of me. I don't know what I'm going to call myself, but don't mess with his grandma. Just do not mess with his grandma, because I am on a mission. I am on a mission to make this world a better place for him. And that means I am on a mission to share what has been given to me to share in a way that I didn't really realize I was on a mission to before. And I thought I was on a mission before. So let me stop there. I want to hear your thoughts and your comments before we wrap it up.
I'll share a couple things real quick. I've had a lot of opportunity in the last few days to look at some things. I'll give you the short outline. Last Friday, I spent hours at probate court waiting to get my concealed carry permit. And the array of people that were there and the conversations that were going on in that courthouse, I wish I would have had a video camera. I could have just recorded it, because it was unreal. And you talk about all different paradigms as far as why they're there and what they're going to do and everything else. So that was Friday. I got back and I put my phone, hooked it up like I normally do, my computer, and I stepped out of the room, and then I hear a loud explosion and my phone exploded. The battery exploded on it and blew the faceplate off the phone. I mean, if I would have been sitting here, I'm sure I would have got caught and got part of it. So my communications were shut down almost literally for several days, because I had to go and get a new phone. I went through all of that. And then yesterday, I had a chance to talk to a person who was at the 6th in DC. He was actually there. He showed me video on his phone of him being there and what he experienced at that. And boy, what a different look you get from somebody who was there, who had their phone going and video going at the whole time. So I got a lot of that. And and then I got yesterday, I was working on my computer, and somebody came in and said, "Did you get your gas?" And I'm going, "Did I get my gas? What do you mean? Did I get my gas?" "Oh, they're lined up. There's like 40 people and waiting in line, and Johnson Ferry's all backed up, and Roswell Road's all backed up." I'm going, "What?" "Yeah, we're out of gas. We're running out of gas." So I sat there for about 10 or 15 minutes, realizing I only had about 1/8 of a tank, because I wasn't paying any attention to what's going on. So what do? I'm going, I get in my Jeep. 2 hours later, I have a full tank of gas. 2 hours later, the lines were unreal, and the behavior was unreal. The people towards each other, people wanting to cut in line, all kinds of stuff. By the way, the credit card machines were not working right. So many people had to pay cash. But this is going on right now. So Atlanta, I know where you're not here right now, but they say if things are not cleaned up by Friday with the pipeline, which is only 2 days away, all hell could break loose right now. That's how bad it is, because that pipeline is totally shut down. All of these things are happening right now. And so there's plenty of opportunity to learn and grow and to be exposed and to maintain yourself. But I just wanted, I don't know if anybody else is having anything like this going on with them right now, but I just wanted to share it. And I'm sure glad I got a safe place to come and I can just express this without getting into some long discourse about what's going on in from so many different ways of looking at things. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have a similar story? As you said, I'm in Colorado, so I'm not experiencing that here, but I know people in Atlanta are texting me and messaging me that they are. Who else wants to share?
I do. This is Dondra.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Dondra. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, yeah, that's why I was a little bit late. Yesterday afternoon, there was no gas to be found in Rockmart. And my son called me this morning and found one station that had some. And we're in the same, I mean, we're probably 25, 30-mile radius with no gas. It's a little too close to home with what's going on.
Yeah, well, these are the times that I don't care how spiritual somebody thinks that they are. If we are not paying attention to what's happening, the outside is a reflection of what's been going on inside. Inside, most of us have been totally and completely in the dark about what goes on outside. You know what corruption means? Doing things in the dark and keeping people from knowing about it. That's it. In what way? Service to self alone. When the ego gets up in a position of power and it has power and the ability to make money, why do you think our political system has changed into an oligarchy? Why do you think so many corporations can buy their way to these politicians? Why do you think we have lifelong political people? That should never happen. Those who are in service in government, in elected officials, these people should be elected for 1 or 2 terms and then they go home and they live under the laws that they created. Never did our founding fathers think that we were going to have lifelong politicians. How has this created? Because we have lifelong delusion of who we think we are. We think we're puny little peanuts here on this in America or on the planet, and we need to have somebody else tell us what to do and not do. Our minds have been trained into submission. It is time for us to submit to the will of God and realize that we were created for grandness, not for this what's happening right now. And how are we going to reclaim our grandness? By seeing what is not so great that's happening, by seeing the ideas of grandeur that a few have and have placed themselves on a pedestal, and the rest of us puny beings at the bottom. You know, we are in the midst right now of what could be the beginning. Well, it's not even the beginning stages. It is full on Hunger Games. We are moving into a time when those of us who have been maintained at such levels of ignorance, we are disposable to those who don't want to have us around. God wants us around, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it. It is time that we begin to understand what is our purpose. We're bringers of light. We're bringers of life, light and life, same thing. We're bringers of liberty. We're bringers of expressed creativity. We're bringers of pure happiness. How are we suffering and scared of gas when we are the holy children of God? Something is off. What is off? We've all been trained into believing God is outside of us so that we would never listen to God inside of us. Well, the effects of it are evident right now. Those who think that they are our gods are going to stop at nothing to ensure that the rest of us know our place. If we accept that, well, then yes, we deserve whatever comes. And you know what? Whatever comes is the result of what we've been believing we deserve. So it's not like this is not law. This is law, cause and effect. So we have the ability to shift the law. We have the ability to absolutely, completely reverse karma, but not until we align with God. Karma is a pendulum that swings, good, bad, bully, victim, left, right, blue, red, straight, not straight. You know, it's all of the things that we're taught to chase. What is steady, certain, and does not waver is our holiness, is our eternalness. We have to ground ourselves in that power and then exercise it. There is absolutely no other way to change the insanity out there if you don't get sane inside. Stop believing that you're not the magnificent being that you are. Course in Miracles is really clear. Our ego has an agenda. God has an agenda too. And we are going to return to the light in this lifetime or the next. I vote that we do it in this lifetime, because in this lifetime is where I'm a grandmother. Who else wants to share? And Biden is proposing 4 more years of school to brainwash children, keeping them in school from 3 to 4 years old to 21. Oh Lord, the insanity is getting crazier. But you know what? Biden has to do what Biden is doing, because Biden is showing to the world what they believe in. Notice how we got rid of Trump, get rid of the bad guy. None of the problems have gone away. If anything, they've intensified. Isn't that interesting? Now, of course, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I don't see anybody out there that was wanted to get rid of Trump so badly that is going around saying, yay, I love what we've got. I don't see that. Why? Because the mind that is controlled will say and do anything that is absolutely nonsensical. And that's exactly what is happening right now. I can laugh about it because I know I'm eternal. I know every one of you is going to return to the infinite source. I know none of you is going to have permanent death, just the experience of the transition. So I can laugh at the way that we're using our power with you guys. Like Vern said, this is a safe place. Not that I need it to be safe, but I know we're eternal. I just want to appeal to you to use your eternal power now and shift the trajectory that we're going to reincarnate into, because we are going to come back. That's what karma is. We got to come back and clean up our insanity. We clean it up right here where we created. So today, are you willing to resurrect the truth of who you are and just let that egoic part of you, just let it stop telling you what to do so that you can find your voice? Who else wants to share something? And then we'll do one more share and then we'll wrap it up. So I can give my kids their house back. And frankly, I want to go hold my grandbaby. Who else? No? Yeah, if Biden makes homeschooling illegal, that is when the parents in America will find a place to unite. If they attempt to do that, watch out. Natalia, if you have an article or a link to that, please forward that to me. I'd love to see it. And inside of our chat group in Telegram, please post things like this, not to bash, but to open up our eyes and let us see what's going on. It really is absolutely amazing. Well, I love you all. Thank you all for being here.
Laina, I finally got set up on Telegram.
Oh, good.
And I'm sure it took me a while to figure out what I was doing or not doing with it, because I got it on my phone and I got it on the desktop. I haven't gotten anything from you at all.
I'll send you a link.
Okay, because I see you. I see a lot of the names here on it, and then I went through and eliminated a lot of people that were on there that I didn't want to interface with. So I learned how to clean up my contact list. That's one thing I did. But I'm not quite sure what I should be looking for or getting from you. So
I'll find you and send you a link, and we'll add you to the group now that we know you're in it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good. I just wanted to make sure I knew what was going on.
Will do. I'll do that right now.
Right.
Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Yep. See you Friday.
Stay safe out there. Oh yeah, Friday. That's right. We'll have a personal conversation.
Yep.
Bye-bye with you too,
Bye-bye.
Lorelai. Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Namaste.
Mwah.
Namaste.